Hey, what's going on people? In this video we'll be covering the best builds for Flak in Borderlands 3. Flak is home to some of the most unique and damaging builds in the entire game. All of these builds will have you dominating endgame content, some in incredibly interesting ways. There's surely something in here for you, and you can find their save files in the description, and let's crack into it. We start with the Flak build that maximizes the criticality of your weapons, excelling with guns that fire fast or simply expend a lot of projectiles, bonus points for both. This build is of course fadeaway Flak, and if you're looking for the skill tree, here it is on screen now. Obviously we'll be using the Gorillas in the Mist augment to allow fadeaway to last longer than 3 shots. This gives us a much longer window to deal some incredible damage. That damage is given to us in part thanks to an action skill start revolter, which increases our fire rate for 50% after we activate our action skill and also gives us 200% bonus shock damage for 15 seconds. That bonus fire rate is great, allowing us to proc our skills more often, and the 15 seconds comfortably fits within the fadeaway window. Fire rate and projectile count are important to this build because we want to be cycling fadeaways as quickly as possible. The key skill that enables us to do that is head count, which reduces fadeaway's cooldown whenever we get a critical hit. Critical hits also help to extend the life of each magazine thanks to leave no trace, and with Megavore we have a chance to land them outside of fadeaway. It's not just these skills which are at the core of this build, but it's our class mod too. That class mod is the Spellcaster, which grants a stacking 5% bonus weapon damage for each critical hit, and it stacks up to 99 times. However, any non-critical hit will reset that buff. Best rolls on the Spellcaster include weapon type damage, manufacturer crit, weapon damage, mag size, and action skill cooldown rate. Every projectile from every shot will be stacking this class mod up, and that's why the bonus fire rate from the revolter is great, and why this build excels with a particular set of weaponry. The rule of thumb here is fire rate and projectile count, making weapons like the Monarch an absolute top choice. It'll stack your class mod and reset your action skill incredibly quickly. It's not just weapons like the Monarch though. The Hellwalker also excels in this build thanks to its high projectile count, and because it's a Jacob's weapon with a focus on landing criticals, that synergizes incredibly well with Flak, so you'll find most Jacob's weapons to fit nicely in this build. Low projectile count weapons like the Lucian's Call or Rowan's Call work well here too, and the crit with its massive critical hit damage bonus won't let you down either. It's also worth noting that weapons like the Needle Gun, where you can't make those projectiles hit criticals, work great in this build thanks to fadeaway. That also applies on secondary projectiles with weapons like the King's and Queen's Call, which absolutely dominates the bossing arena. Of course, where we can, we'll want that ×2 variant, and when it comes to shotguns like something like the Reflux, we'll want a ×14. The Reflux in particular is an absolute mobbing machine. It'll reset fadeaway at a rate which very little weapons can compete with, and you just have to try it in this build. When looking at anointments, consecutive hits is a great choice here, as that's the main aim with this build. For bossing or on weapons which maintain high fadeaway uptime, a fadeaway anointment will do wonders, and that's also what I recommend on weapons like the Hellwalker, but reload stack can be good too. For artifacts, the Pearl of Ineffable Knowledge provides a great baseline, with fire rate and mag size boosts being its best role. However, God rolled company men, if I can call them that, with mag size crit damage and fire rate as main rolls, and mag size action skill cooldown and AoE in either slot 2 or 3 will outperform it. For grenade mods, I like its piss for that debuff, and you'll want action skill in rad for mobbing and on grenade throw for bossing. Piecing it all together, you'll be fading away more than Dirk Nowitzki, landing an onslaught of damaging 3-pointers from range. Now to a Flak build that abuses the strength of some of the most powerful legendary gear in the game to deal some phenomenal amounts of damage. And with great gear comes great gear ability. This build at its core is similar to the one featured in the Best Builds 2024 video, but we're dropping the War Loader bot and disregarding slamming to raise the potential of the core gameplay loop. If you're familiar with Rakk Stabb by Quag and Retour, then that is the heart of this build, providing a unique and devastating way to dominate the Borderlands. If you're looking for the skill tree, here it is on screen now. We go far down in the orange tree so we can pick up Rakk Accelerate and Flock and Load to increase the Rakk attack cycle, and we bring a Scorching Spiderant along for the ride to boost our elemental damage. That elemental damage is raised thanks to points in Barbaric Yorp, but the key pet isn't the Spiderant, but the rats with wings we summon out of our sleeves. A family of 4 will burst from our arms each time we activate our action skill, dealing great amounts of incendiary splash damage on their own, but with the Peregrine class mod they'll drop grenades on our enemies too, massively increasing the damage of each Rakk attack activation. The grenade mod that they'll be dropping off is of course the Fish Slap, which deals melee damage, and you'll want an action skill and red one to irradiate the battlefield. Triple link rolls is the best, but any Fish Slap is incredibly strong. Being able to summon Fish Slaps from our own hand as well as our Rakk just doubles the carnage, but the Peregrine class mod provides another bonus to this build. That is at the range in which these Fish Slaps are unloaded. Because we'll be wielding a Guardian Angel which boosts all of our damage by up to 500% the further we are away from our enemies, those Fish Slaps and Rakk for that matter get close to the damage cap that the Guardian Angel provides. You'll want one with an action skill and melee damage anointment, or you can even equip a Psycho Stabber to purely boost only melee. And that bonus to melee damage doesn't just affect the Fish Slap, but the shield we'll be using. That shield is of course the Stinger, which releases novas based on its elemental type every time its shield breaks, and with an action skill start anointment, that'll be each time we call our Rakk into battle. Ideally you want a Stinger to cover all of the elements, but Cryo is a great choice as it synergizes great with the Punchy, and that goes with your Fish Slaps as well. You might think the Guardian Angel might not do much to those novas as they're pretty tight ranged, but with an AoE roll in slot 2 or 3 of our artifact, we'll increase the size of those novas as well. Speaking of artifacts, the ones I recommend include the Unleash the Dragon, which can burn enemies like nothing else. Any punch attack will bring on the burn, and with an Incendiary Stinger, those burns can be awfully spicy. If you don't feel like bringing the burn, you can always equip a Stone Static Charge. The Stone prefix provides 80% bonus elemental damage to all your melee attacks, and the Static Charge itself provides 100% bonus shock damage, with 25% of that chaining to 1 or 2 nearby enemies per hit. Both artifacts are great options and will take your damage to the next level. Across the board on your class mods or artifacts, you should be looking for boosts to melee damage, splash damage and splash radius, or action skill cooldown rate, with the latter being less necessary thanks to our augments. All you have to do to reach peak damage with this build is send out some Rakk and chuck out some Fish Slap, and keep in mind of the distance you are from your enemies to maximize the all-round damage boost provided by the Guardian Angel. Of course, with the Psycho Stabber you don't have to be wary of your positioning. What you might want to be wary of though are barrels and the locations of any spawning salmon, as these are the things most likely to down you, but because we have Lick the Wounds, our pet will revive us if that ever does happen. When you're up and on your feet though, this build deals absolute carnage. The Stinger's Novas will destroy anything around you, and the Fish Slap and Rakk will take out anything at distance. It's a build that has all bases covered. Covered in what? Covered in damage. Now for a build that makes me throw up a little each time I think about it. That is, of course, Punchbot by Lazy Data and Retour. This build is so simple it's gross, but you just gotta love it. If you're familiar with it, you'll know what I mean, but we'll get to that in just a little bit, and I have made adjustments here and there. If you're looking for the skill tree, here it is on screen now. But again, the gear is key with this one. What you'll need is a Face Puncher, hence the punch, and a Stack Bot, hence the bot. Those are the 2 items crucial to this build, but they're easy to get, and you can be up and running with this in no time. This build purely revolves around stacking the Stack Bot's weapon damage boost to its maximum and sustaining that. It stacks up to 99 times, increasing weapon damage by 5% per stack for each critical hit you land without resetting it, and that's a lot. Everything else in this build serves to enhance that. Rolls I recommend on the Stackbot include melee damage, mag size, Hyperion crit damage, and action skill cooldown rate. Now the genius behind this build is that the Face Puncher doesn't reset the stacks on the Stackbot, but it does get the bonuses from its weapon damage. So we can have a Face Puncher that's 5 times stronger 24/7. The best item I recommend for stacking up our class mod is the Bang Stick on Sticky mode. You'll want one with 18 projectiles, which you can fire 3 times and fade away to achieve maximum stacks. That's 18 per shot, firing 3 times is 54, and double that to get over 100 when the sticky bombs explode. Ideally you want a no mayhem or low level bang stick to avoid killing your target when you're stacking up. And weapons like a high pellet count Stagecoach or a ×4 or ×8 Monarch work as well. You can reach max stacks with one burst of fadeaway incredibly easily, and as long as the shot was fired within fadeaway, the detonating sticky bombs will hit criticals. Do remember though that stacks reset if you don't land a critical with a regular gun. A grenade that shoots bullets, i.e. the Hunter Seeker, and Loaderbot will reset it as well, and a lot of niche things. Travelling to a new map, i.e. seeing a load screen, or downing also resets it. Don't worry though, because 3 shots of the Bang Stick on Sticky mode is all it takes to be riding that high again. When at max power, this build dominates, able to obliterate the battlefield with ease. You want to use Gorillas in the Mist while mobbing to get the maximum benefit from fadeaway, able to just tear through mobs left, right and centre. You can run this build with a focus on Terror, but outside of that, anointments I'd recommend include action skill and melee damage, and while fadeaway is active, weapon damage. The latter I prefer for bossing, and melee damage is good overall. Speaking of bossing, 3-shot fadeaway is great if you want to deal massive damage in short bursts. You can even use the Fish Slap itself to drop bosses in one shot. And that's the grenade mod I'd recommend, as it synergizes with what we're trying to do in this build. I'd also recommend grabbing one with each of the action skill and elemental anointments. If you want to one-shot things with the Face Puncher though, there is a one-shotter shield in here which will help you do that easily. However, that's far from needed. For the most part in this build, you'll be using the Stinger, which provides 50% increased punchy damage when our shield is full. When it is depleted, it will also produce Thunderous Novas matching the elemental type of the shield, and that's why I recommend an action skill start anointment for it. There is also plenty of white elephants in here in the artifact slot, where the sticky bombs it summons scale off splash damage. However, in general I wouldn't recommend it as it is pretty RNG intensive, and I'd go with the Static Charge. The Static Charge provides 100% bonus shock damage to all of our melee attacks, i.e. every shot of our Face Puncher, and each projectile of each shot, either ×7 or 14, has a 20% chance to chain 25% of that damage to nearby enemies. Those chains can crit, proccing skills like Head Count, and that's why I prefer the ×14 variant. Both those artifacts are good though, and whatever one you get is going to do well in this build. The best prefix for either artifact is of course Stone, which imbues bonus elemental damage to each of your melee attacks. The bonus sits at 80% and it's great for adding extra flavour to your attacks. Knife Drain is also a fantastic prefix for survivability, healing you each time you shoot something. Key rolls on these artifacts include obviously punchy damage, which can double roll, mag size, and if you're using the White Elephant, AoE damage. Skill cooldown is also great. Alright, that's enough talking about this build. I think I'm gonna throw up now. Now onto a flak build that takes every single possible damage source and merges that into a single streamlined gameplay loop. How is that possible? Well, it's possible because you're a wizard, Flacky. Yes, this is my Spellcaster flak build, optimized for 2024, providing even more damage and much more survivability, although still expect to go down and get right back up again. If you're looking for the skill tree, here it is on screen now. And what we're trying to achieve here is giving the most damage possible to our pet, in this case the behemoth that is the War Loaderbot, and also give them enough survivability as well. We go down the orange tree to grab crit boosting skills, and make sure we pick up enough damage and survivability boosts for flak too. You'll notice there's no lick the wounds, but there's so much ordnance involved in this build that something's bound to lick them. We've got slamming, spark plug coils, our grenades, our pet's grenades, our Rakk's grenades, our Rakk, and of course the Warloaderbot's flaming shotgun and missile barrage. That's a lot of stuff. This build simply excels at bringing all that damage together to make a nice damage souffle. The Warloaderbot is a beast all to themselves, and because we've got a point and eager to impress, we can chain its missile barrage over and over again. This build has so much damage sources, and there's a couple of items that can increase the power of all of them. One of them is of course the Revolter, and you'll want one with an action skill start anointment. Every time a flurry of Rakk flies out of your fingers, you'll be granted 200% bonus shock damage to all of these damage sources. You can also apply even more damage to everything through the Guardian Angel, which grants up to 500% bonus damage the further you are away from your enemies. Obviously slamming's not going to see that maximum damage, but I can guarantee something of yours on the battlefield will be. Alternatives to the Guardian Angel include the Psycho Stabber, which will boost the power of the Fish Slap Grenade. Because we're spec'd into Megavore, the Unforgiven works too, with maximum crit boost of 432%. On all of these items you want a URAD anointment to apply 100% bonus radiation damage on top of everything else. We can activate this anointment every time through the artifact we'll be using, in this case the Deathless artifact, and you'll want a spark plug prefix so you can plant coils on the ground as another source of damage. Not only are the coils from the spark plug great at proccing abilities, but their damage can't be scoffed at. I was able to defeat Captain Traunt with a single coil with the Unforgiven equipped. You don't need to slam with this build, but it is much more fun. And don't be surprised when a single slam demolishes everything in front of you. Good rolls on our artifact include AoE damage in slot 2 or 3 to also boost radius, melee damage if we're using the Fish Slap Grenade, increases to action skill cooldown rate or rad damage, and boost to grenade damage can be great as well, considering we have 3 sources of grenades, us, our pet, and our Rakk. Some good grenades other than the Fish Slap, which is best with triple link rolls by the way, is the Vindicator Gust Call, which can't come anointed. The Hunter Seeker is immensely powerful on the Loaderbot, and the Hex and Light Speed are gonna work too. The Fish Slap is going to deal the most damage for you, but homing grenades like the Gust Call are great for when your Warloaderbot decides to throw it at a wall and it's still going to do something. As you've probably already guessed, the class mod we're using for this build is the Peregrine, allowing our Rakks to drop grenades. The Rakks themselves deal great damage, and the grenades they drop even more so. However, this build doesn't stop there. I've just outlined the everything everywhere all at once portion of this build. With just a few modifications you can take a back seat and let your Warloaderbot do everything. We do that by changing our action skill to Gamma Burst, which supercharges our pet with radiation damage. When you go this route you want to switch over your class mod to the Red Fang, which will make every enemy target your Warloaderbot as long as Gamma Burst is active, so you can truly take a back seat. Thanks to being able to drop with points in Throat Ripper or Monkey Do, the role reversal is great for maximizing the one-shot potential of your pet. Speaking of one-shot potential, you can also equip a Faulty Star, which causes novas around the attacking player, and because our pet has our shield, it'll cause novas around our enemies, which get a hefty amount of mayhem scaling, comfortably destroying mobs each time it procs. Whatever way you decide to go, this build has you covered. There's nothing quite like it in the Borderlands.